Hi there, and welcome to Take Two with Veronica Thompson. We're going to speak about this week ancient Egypt in specifics, and also the amazing rulers that it had. So, for this episode, I really want to cover how Cleopatra's strategies of gaining power align with Michael Mann's theories of power as well. Would these strategies work in today's society? Explain the differences and similarities in social systems of ancient Egypt and modern America, and how women are able to follow in her footsteps. But first, I really want to start off on looking back at Cleopatra, and I would like to argue that her specific use of ideology was her main source of power. So to start off, in ancient Egypt, I want to give a little background about how women really held power in the ancient times. Many of them could be good and many of them could be bad. A lot of the situations were handled in a lot of different ways. But for example, during these times in Egypt, women had power that were different than today. And some similarities, they too share women were able to rule. But although the amount of power that women actually were able and capable of receiving dwelled, it depended on the status of the men that they were attracted to or in some sort of alliance with. So the more power the men had, ultimately related to how much power the women had in the long run. Given that the Ptolemy dynasty was such an important part of her reign, I really want to go into how Cleopatra's family was really the perfect reality TV show if it were to be broadcasted through today's world. It starts off with her father, Ptolemy, who really created an empire, and with that empire came a lot of bloodshed in order to stay within the family because it was such a high-oriented place that everybody wanted power. He created a dynasty that was so well put together and so honored that everyone wanted to be a part of it and everyone wanted to make sure to stay within it. So the family itself was extremely cutthroat. They were willing to damage or get rid of or kill whoever to be able to really stay in that inner circle and be able to have the opportunity to lead in some way, shape, or form later on in the future. This dynasty, the Ptolemy dynasty, took place in 323 BCE to 30 BCE. And during this time, the main idea was always to have kingship directed to someone in case something had gone wrong within the kingship itself. So the person usually would take over if there was any sort of problems was the queen. The queen had full-on kingship if there was a problem with the king. So whoever was the wife of the king of Egypt was the native ruler. And it originally identified as the ability to bring power to females through kingship. This was the first movement that women were really able to seize power through a male. That when a kingship needed her, that she would be able to step up and take responsibility and really lead Egypt. Another problem with ancient Egypt and the kingship itself was that there was a lot of incest. And this is not out of the ordinary for ancient Egypt. In the Ptolemy dynasty, incest was even more visible due to the power-hungry individuals that were increased with the family. So this idea of keeping the power within the family by incest was a much better plan than separating and dividing the power to different families when the option of incest still remained. And it was because of how much inbreeding that was present during this time made it so easy for females to receive some sort of power by their families and by the kingship. This really starts off with Ptolemy the 12th, which was Cleopatra's father. With Ptolemy the 12th being Cleopatra's father, she was really able to gain power through him in the beginning. In the beginning of the dynasty, when Ptolemy the 12th really took over, Egypt was in great debt and also was in loss of Cyprus, which is now known to be eastern Lebanon. And during this time, he was really able to take ancient Egypt and turn it around and recreate it and turn it into the dynasty that we are now looking back at as historians and really understanding the greatness that he achieved. With Ptolemy XII as Cleopatra's father, this was the first time that she was really able to be in sight of power, and Cleopatra VII was named co-regent with her father, Ptolemy XII, at age 12. And then when Ptolemy XII died in 51 BCE, he left the throne to Cleopatra when she was 18, and Ptolemy XIII when he was 10 years old. As time went on, Cleopatra really wanted to be able to sustain the ability of her power, and Cleopatra is first distinguished powerful when she is first placed with her first love interest with one of her two brothers. Cleopatra was first ruling alongside her father, Ptolemy XII, and later her two brothers, Ptolemy XIII and XIV, until they were both overthrown and had power taken away from them. Ptolemy XIII started a war between Alexandria and tried to seize the palace because Alexandria was a very powerful place. Shortly after this war was declared, Ptolemy XIII died from drowning while trying to escape the battlefield by the war. Ptolemy XIV was also murdered by Julius Caesar. This was a common theme in ancient Egypt, which was to marry and have children with siblings or cousins. But with both of these brothers dying and being moved from power, Cleopatra thought that maybe she needed a next step. She believed to have a romantic relationship with Julius Caesar so that she was able to control the war of Alexandria and uphold her power, so that she could really identify herself as queen. After Cleopatra and Julius's romantic relationship was confirmed, most people believe that Cleopatra had asked Julius to murder her brother as a favor so that they could return to Egypt and rule together. And during this time, Caesar was an extremely powerful military leader and also a political leader. So this relationship was first formed out of the ability to become allies. And Cleopatra wanted power in Egypt, while Julius Caesar really wanted power over the Roman Empire. Julius also happened to be one of the 3 secretaries working together in the Roman Empire, and this being one of the most powerful jobs in Rome during this time, Julius now had a huge target on his back. Julius has lots of power, and there are many people that would like to take him down for it. After finding power once again with Cleopatra, they needed to seal the deal in order to maintain this power she was receiving through Julius Caesar. So, Cleopatra did what was right and had Julius Caesar's baby. This alliance makes it so much easier to demonstrate the clear goals that Cleopatra had, which was to regain power that she had lost in order to gain that power back over the Roman Empire. This was one of Cleopatra's amazing strategies that allows her to push her own limits and create more opportunity for her to gain that power. By connecting herself with Julius Caesar, she's able to eliminate any current struggles and maintaining her power. Later, Cleopatra and Julius's relationship grows. Caesar and Cleopatra's relationship is revealed to the public, and this alliance between Egypt and Rome was much too powerful. Therefore, once Julius returned back home, he was instantly murdered. And this is one of the examples of the ancient world trying to control the amount of power that each specific person had or was capable of having. This is one of the many examples that Cleopatra really used ideology to her strengths. She definitely played to her advantages, knowing that she was a woman and knowing that her power was only capable and sustainable by having a man at her side. Cleopatra was never seen without a man by her side, whether it was her father in her early reign to either husbands and her brothers, and later her reign with Julius Caesar, and even later than that, Mark Antony. So after seeking both of these men with political and military power, she had children with them to both ensure that her reign would be indeed safe in the ancient world. We see examples of this in our day-to-day lives within America. For example, the First Lady, the wife to the president, would not have any power if it wasn't for her husband being able and capable of succeeding to that high of a rank. I want to go a little bit deeper and kind of explore the idea of the First Lady. And for example, Michelle Obama was one of the most influential First Ladies that we've had in the past decade. She is able and was able to have an influence over the youth that was so strong and guide them into a certain area. And Michelle Obama also used her power of ideology by describing that the youth of the children were the next generation and enforcing that they must be prepared and choose the right decisions. The way that Cleopatra also used the same ideology, not in the same form, but she definitely used her ideology to connect herself to men of power, the same way that Michelle has the connection to Obama. Both of these women in power, we are able to look back on their time and really discuss and identify what made them in particular so strong. And with Michelle Obama, she really was a role model for women, as Cleopatra is nowadays, to really take control of the power that is given to them and really use it to their advantage. The day that Cleopatra was born, she had known, and her family had known, that she was possibly going to take over, and she stood by that. And she really wanted to become an influencer in the way that she would be able to make an impact and take control and lead the way that she was born to do. And with Michelle Obama, it wasn't quite known. It's not a known fact, but she was able to take power through her husband and really take control of what she needed to do. And if we were to look back on the time of Cleopatra, there are artifacts that can tell us how beautiful and respected she was through a sculpture that is now held at the Met. And first off, this sculpture is shown to be very petite, and she is identified with breasts and long braided hair. She is also seen with a lot of femininity through the clothes, with the dress and a headset and a crown. So through that all, we can identify her as a woman in power, and she's also sculpted in a beautiful marble, which is extremely expensive and a rare stone. Therefore, this material can be identified and looked at as someone with such a high status and very high in power. Overall, the tactics that Cleopatra used was first and foremost informal sex, and created alliance with relationships, which overall gave her the ability to become so powerful. And she also aligns so well with the Michael Mann's theories of ideology and military and politics and economics, and really helped herself improve in her own way of creating power in Egypt for herself.